Did y'all know that Lift Every Voice and Sing, also known as the African American National Anthem, was first written as a poem in 1900 by James Weldon Johnson and later set to music by his brother J. Rosman Johnson, and then first sung by elementary school children in Jacksonville, Florida? How many of y'all know that? Not the choir, because y'all said it this morning. How many of y'all know that? I see one, I see a few people. Well, y'all just got a little history lesson, so we can just call worship over. We done sang, and y'all done got some news that you can go. No, okay, I do got a couple of more words before the second service. So, across generations, Lift Every Voice and Sing has been lifted up from artists from Ray Charles to Beyonce. And in recent years, especially since the protests following the killing of George Floyd in 2020, this song has risen again as a song of memory, of mourning, and of moral clarity. It is a song that calls us to remember where we, as a beloved community, have been, and to keep our eyes fixed on where we're going. Fast forward to January 2026, just a few weeks ago, many of you know that I answered a call from the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association to show up in solidarity in Minneapolis with a group called March that stands for the Multi-Faith Anti-Racism Change and Healing of Minnesota. Yes. Thank you. And I know that most of you all know that that invitation came in response to the targeted violence against immigrant communities in Latin and Somali neighborhoods and the deployment of thousands of armed mass ICE and U.S. Border Patrol agents into their city. At that time, March called clergy and faith leaders from every tradition, from every corner of the country to gather for a day of witness and resistance. And y'all, resist we did. One of the ways that we resisted was by lifting every voice and singing together. And y'all, I genuinely believe that just for a moment, heaven and earth really did ring with liberty. But a part of what made heaven and earth ring was not that song, as powerful as it was. What made the ground tremble was the many songs that carried us through the protests. Each voice rising above fear, each refrain declaring that we shall not be moved. And one of those songs was our anthem today. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Turn me around, turn me around, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching on the freedom land. Y'all, we sang that song in sub-zero temperatures. We sang it with frozen fingers and burning hearts, with our bodies trembling in the cold, but our spirits so steady. And I'm glad that we didn't turn around, because that refusal mattered. Some of y'all know that that refusal helped lead to the recent nomination of the city of Minneapolis and its people for the 2026 Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, give it up for our cousins in Minneapolis. Y'all, this was great news. And their nomination letter says that through countless acts of courage and solidarity, the people of Minneapolis challenged a culture of fear, hate, and brutality that has gripped this nation and too many others. Their nonviolent resistance captured the imagination of the world. Their moral leadership of the city became a living example of what it looks like to resist fascism without surrendering the soul, end quote. Yes, that is what it means to lift every voice in a way that makes heaven and earth ring, right? Yes, amen. You know, Minneapolis modeled faith in one another, and we can do the same thing here in Atlanta. A faith that refuses to be turned around by fear, by injustice, or by despair. Because when systems try to crush our dignity, they shouldn't get to also recruit our own spirit to help them do it. Because, it's as Beyonce puts it. I know some young folks might be in the room who know this song. You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul. So, okay, it ain't that many of y'all. So Booker T. Washington said it like this long before the beat dropped. He said, I will permit no man to narrow or degrade my soul by making me hate. I will permit no man to narrow or degrade my soul by making me hate. That is what I mean when I say liberatory love. Liberatory love as a choice, a self-practice care. Liberatory love as the refusal to let hatred make a home inside your heart. And family, I know that we are living in heartbreaking, hate-inducing, rage-fueling times. Sure, I know it's good news that Minneapolis is being recognized as a modern movement for peace, but I know that same sense of peace can feel worlds away in our own hearts and minds. I know for myself, just the other day, I was beside myself with sorrow and anger over a story that is painfully similar to the one that we heard earlier during the Time for All Ages. This time, the father's name was Rodney Taylor. That's the name that I have on my shirt. Rodney is from Liberia. Like Carmen's dad, Rodney is a magician, only his tools are barber's clippers. Like Carmen's dad, Rodney gave decades of his life to community. For more than 30 years, he worked, raised 7 children, and navigated an ableist world as a double amputee. Like Carmen's dad, Rodney was taken by ICE. Rodney Taylor has been detained here in Atlanta since January of 2025, a year ago. But I learned of Rodney's detention on the same day that I learned of Alex Preddy's murder. The same day that I returned from what had already felt like a Nobel-worthy protest. At the time, I was so full of energy. I was strengthened by this sense of collective courage. And then I got back to Atlanta and I saw the news of what had happened to Alex. And then I started looking through the news and I just got further and further devastated, deflated, and I thought that I might spiral into a very rational depression. To move from collective mourning for the named murders of people like Renee Good and then Alex Preddy, and then into a near silence surrounding a disabled Black immigrant wasting away in a nearby detention center. For me, this felt more than emotionally painful. I felt this viscerally embodied. And this pain that I was feeling became infuriating because, y'all, the racism that I was noticing was unmistakable. In detention practices and media coverage, in whose suffering was being centered and whose was being sidelined. I was angry that even some religious leaders seemed to need the death of, I'm sorry to say it, but another white, respectability-approved person before questioning the morality of this administration. Y'all, I was livid. And I gotta say that I'm sharing this because, so often, as your minister, you see me as grounded and joyful, and, I snap and shake it off. But that day, I fell into what Howard Thurman called the trap of hatred. Thurman warns that if someone knows exactly how to make you lose your equilibrium, your emotional balance, they can keep you in subjugation. That bears repeating. If someone can control your rage, your despair, your hatred, they can control you. This is why Booker T. Washington's words sit at the heart of theologians like Thurman. Again, saying, I will permit no man to narrow and degrade my soul by making me hate. I will not give anyone that power. To me, this means that I will not allow hate residence in my soul, no matter how justified my rage and my anger may feel. This is what trained faith looks like when love is the discipline. That is refusal as spiritual practice. Dr. King echoed it when he said, quote, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that, end quote. Thurman teaches that protecting the inner spirit from hatred and deep rage is essential to liberation, not because oppression isn't real, but because hatred corrodes the very freedom that we are fighting for. There's a UU minister, Reverend Jules Taylor, who names it this way when they write, love looks different. They say, yes, love is patient, love is kind, love bears all things. We know all those words when we talk about personal love, but love looks different when it faces systems. Love looks different in the face of injustice. Then love is resistant. Love is defiant, like the multi-school-led walkouts that happened recently. Shout out to the Atlanta youth, regardless of how you showed solidarity. Yes. Jules continues, love looks like not backing down. Love stays in the streets or on the phones with politicians in partnership with legislative networks. You know, you can sign up today after church, I'm just saying. Jules continues and says that love holds us and ourselves accountable. Love is challenging because none of us is free until all of us are free. Again, none of us is free until all of us is free. These words are very connected to a song that came up by the Singing Resistance. Some of y'all might have seen them on social media around these times, and they're singing this song that I want to share with you all. No one is getting left behind this time. No one is getting left behind. No one is getting left behind this time. We get there together or never get there at all. We get there together or never get there at all. Because love can be a form of protest. This is where Adrienne Marie Brown meets our faith. She reminds us that when those in power enact inhumane and anti-planet harm, our choice is to be disruptive, non-cooperative, to refuse polite compliance. It is how small resistance becomes mass transformation. Historically, resistance looked like enslaved people teaching each other to read. It looked like hiding fugitives. It looked like sharing medicine and care when the system offered none. But today, resistance looks like filming police stops. It looks like naming harm in real time. It looks like organizing mutual aid. It looks like refusing to normalize cruelty. These are not distractions from love. These are love in motion. So yes, it's rational to be angry. It's rational to feel a little rage. It's rational to grieve. But may our anger be grounded in righteous love for one another. May it never calcify into hatred, because hatred, that will turn us around. And we already know we ain't got time for that. So as we prepare to close, I want us to hold fast to this message of a faith that refuses to hate. And again, we sing, ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, Keep on talking, marching on a freedom land. Happy Black History Month. Free Rodney Taylor, abolish ICE, and let us sing together, Oh Freedom, which is our next song. And let's do this not as nostalgia, but as a prophecy. Not as memory, but as a promise for all those who are still detained and for the freedom we are still called to build.